Welcome back to another edition of the podcast. It is our Game Week 7 preview and overall National League roundup. This week, as always, I am joined by Mr. Paul Franklin. Paul, how are you doing firstly?
Yeah, very good, Luke. Not too bad at all. New microphone is in, so hopefully the sound is slightly better for those that are listening. Yeah, so I'm good.
Yeah, Paul's got his on as well. He's got a microphone with him. I've got mine here. I haven't managed to set it up fully yet. I'm still in the process of doing that. I've been proper busy, probably throughout the whole week. Just back at college now, football tonight. So yeah, I've been busy overall. But I did go to Ebbsfleet. I have seen all the results. Seen there's one or two transfer signings out there. York City brought in that lad from Cardiff, that's centre half, who's quite highly rated as well. And then Billy Waters is back at the Shea as well. And there's a few more transfers that we can go over tonight. We're going to take a look at the league table because there's one or two sides as well going under the radar. Rochdale in particular, I don't think we've hardly spoke about them, and they're sitting in fourth at the moment. What a good job Jim McNulty's doing. Gateshead still lead the way after Saturday's result. But before we get into all that, Paul, how's your week been? Successful with Oasis tickets or?
No.
Nah, I'm saying. I think most people are.
I tried my very best. I had 2 laptops, 3 Chromebooks. I took them all off the kids and my wife and laid them out on the table, and I managed to get through into the purchases of them, and then I just couldn't get it. It was hours and hours and hours. In the end, Luke, to be honest with you, I gave up and I thought, it's a year out from now, maybe I could find some tickets nearer the time. So let's hope. I mean, they're re-releasing 2 more gigs, aren't they, in September next year? So we'll go again and try on that one. But I'm pretty sure nearer the time there's going to be tickets available. It's just, and if they say what they say, the way you can't buy them anything plus face value plus a little fee through the likes of Twickets, then I should imagine there'll be some around. So fingers crossed for us both.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as Paul. I was unfortunate. I couldn't even get on the site. Neither could my dad. Neither could my mum either. So none of us even got on. Didn't even get a place in the queue. At least some people got a place. We only stayed on for about 20 minutes, though, to be fair, and thought, well, we need to go to Ebbsfleet anyway. So we made the journey down there. I'm still fairly optimistic that I'll be able to get hold of a ticket closer to time. I just think the demand's high at the moment because they've just got back together. Now they've just announced dates, so everyone's going to be wanting tickets. I don't know many people have been successful. My mate has, so I started quizzing him on all the Oasis songs. God, I'm very jealous. After that, let's put it this way, he knew about 3 or 4 songs. But anyway, let's come to the live chat. Mr. Luke is in. Hello, gents. Sorry I couldn't make it last week's podcast. I wonder who is top of the National League. Jokes aside, hope you are well. You know the drill, no pressure whatsoever. Good to see you back in, Mr. Luke. Yeah, we're wondering where you were last week. Disappointing not seeing you there. We've got Ash as well, who, of course, is a channel member, and it's probably a good point to promote channel members. Basically, if you want to, I think you have to be on a laptop. So if you're on a phone at the moment, do it afterwards. You can join as a channel member. You can use your badge in the comments. I'm hoping to introduce more perks as well. If you do become a member, give me suggestions as well that you'd like to see, and I'll try and include them. But Ash is coming in as a member. Said evening. I hope you are both well. What a great set of matches for this game week. Yeah, that's something we need to bring up in conversation. Saturday's results. Paul, you've beaten me in the predictions league. We'll come on to that later, but I've got to admit, 4-3 Aldershot v Maidenhead. Only certain people have got that kind of knowledge to be able to predict something like that.
What unbelievable prediction that was. I was watching it on on flash score as they were coming through, and I thought it was a 3-2 at one point. I thought, I think I can't get another goal each. And obviously, when I saw it at the end, I was like, bloody hell, that is impressive. Yeah, okay. Admittedly, I got one more point than I did this week, but hats off to you to predict a 4-3 result. That's pretty good going.
Yeah, it took me a long time. I know I come across as all smug, and it's a bit like a smart ass, but basically every single game week, there's always maybe not as much as that, I'll be honest, but there's always like a 4-2 or something that I often throw in there. So I'm not going to go around saying I'm some sort of genius, although I was on that game week. But now we've got Colin who's coming and said, evening guys, welcome to the stream, Colin. Bob's in, evening all, welcome Colin. North Wales Latics, evening gents, sitting back and relaxing with a brew, ready to watch this week's pop at the Latics. Pop at the Latics. Oh, here we go. We might need to address this. I ain't watched the podcasts back. Everyone's saying the Oldham fan base. To be fair, a lot of them, and I will give them credit for this, a lot of them have actually come out and said we actually do respect the podcast and stuff and we like it, but you're being proper harsh on Oldham at the moment. And it's up to you, what your opinions are. It's only a podcast. Of course, it's about opinions. We'll try to ease off and be, I don't know. Yeah, we'll get onto it at some point. But yeah, we've got Hello Lads Chesterfield fan back. Welcome back to the stream. It's good to see Chesterfield fans are still tuning in. Chris is coming in tonight. Evening, everyone. P.S. Halifax 0, Oldham 5. This is what I mean. You tell me that I'm like proper negative on Oldham, and then I get Chris coming in predicting Oldham to win 5-0. Well, I won't respond to it now. And then we've had the Reds. I think that might be an Aldershot fan. I think. And then we've had Chris, who's another Oldham fan. It's also a channel member. It's worth pointing out. Good day, fellas. I have a feeling there's going to be some here, but good day, fellas. Latics need to start finishing our chances. Second in the league in.
Shots, I think I should
say. Just behind Gateshead, but too many draws occurring. What's the pitch going to be like on Tuesday? Like, it should be fine at the moment because it's the start of the season. It's when it starts to get to like November, December when we start having our issues. And then we've got Kevin who's coming and said, good evening, guys. Welcome to the stream, Kevin. Good to see you here. David, who's a Maiden fan, we haven't seen you for a few weeks. Getting tickets for Oasis, similar to getting tickets at York Road. Evening, lads, yeah, definitely. And then we've had Christopher, evening, gents. Is that Saul?
Saul, yeah.
Yeah. Who's the next player to get in the Football League from Halifax? KTS, Kane Thompson-Somers went to MK last week. Off the top of my head, I have a feeling that Adam Senior at some point will end up making a step up. Anyone for you, Paul, when you look at that Halifax side that you think they might step into the Football League in the future or in the short period even?
Probably,
kind of put you on the spot there.
It's difficult, isn't it? Because it might be one of those that goes, I don't know too much about some of the new signings, but if you look at, I think the goalkeeper is one I don't know whether you agree with me there, Luke, in terms of their defensive unit, it could possibly go there. It may be one of those where you need to ask that question sort of towards the end of the season after we've seen a run of games offer somebody a run of form, which then generally, going into January, for instance, you can look at that transfer window and say, oh, he's had a really good first 6 months. Is he worth a punt into the Football League, going into the new season? So there's bound to be a lot of players that are looked upon within the National League because of the sort of level that it's at the moment. And you've only got to watch, MK Dons have got, as an example, having Mike Williamson managing National League, you've got a real splattering of ex-National League players in that team. And I know they're not doing particularly well at the moment, but that's a good step up. So I'm not surprised with was your lad called Somers?
Yeah, Somers. Yeah,
I saw him play last year a couple of times. Very impressed. big, tall, imposing kid. Good on the ball as well. He was probably one of the bright spots for Halifax when I saw him down at the Vale playing Wealdstone when Halifax were okay. And he definitely was one that looked like he had that ability to step up. So I'm not surprised he's gone, and he's of a good age and he's of a good sort of size, etc. for the Football League. So good luck to him. I know he's been there academy set up, so he's done well to go back into the EFL.
Yeah. To be fair, he's someone. He's a big loss for me. I think we're going to miss that midfield. We're going to see over the course of the season how big of a loss he is. I think that so far this season we've missed that presence in the midfield, especially with Summerfield leaving now. I'll come on to the Ebbsfleet game in a little while when we talk about Halifax and the prediction this week. But although we won, I wasn't too impressed going all that way. I'm glad we got the 3 points, and that's all that matters. But it wasn't the best performance and not the best quality of game that you're ever going to see this season. We've also had in, hello lads, do you think, I think it's a York fan actually, hello lads, do you think York deserve to be our football league team?
Oh, there you go, football league.
He spammed it in because he's like every single loads of times. Yeah, I think most people have to agree with the fan base, size of the city and everything, and the potential there. You'd say they deserve to be a football league side. Would you, York, if you were thinking of a side, so in this National League, who do you think is a side with the most potential, would you say, to go shoot through the leagues? Because obviously everyone's going to point towards Oldham, and I think that's right when you say that, because the ex-Premier League side, they get probably the best crowds in the division. But you look at York, you look at the catchment area and how many fans they have the potential to attract. I think they're a club for me that's got so much potential with the size of the city.
Yeah, without doubt. I mean, you could reword it. Which club deserves to be an EFL club? I think everyone has to earn the right to be it. But I think you're right. York are very much placed to be that team. The ground is new or newish. It shares it with the rugby league ground. It's a lovely stadium to go and watch football at. A bit of a pain to get to, for the from the city, but these things happen. But I think they potentially with the Uglers owning it and calming themselves down and getting people into place. They've just put a new director of football in, haven't they? Tony McMahon this week, who's been working in the setup for a number of months now. Yeah, so if they've settled it down on the ownership side, then there's no reason why they can't crack on. They seem to have settled it down, obviously, on the management side with Hinchelwood coming in and he's doing his bit. He's made some good signings, exciting signings, unknown signings. And they sit in sixth place and have only lost one game in six and won 50% of those. So they definitely, I think everyone needs to earn the right. But I think they're definitely one of those clubs after last season's, which was a bit of a shambles, really, wasn't it? In all honesty, for the size of someone like York, with what they had and available to them, I think you're right, Luke. I think if you look at those teams that you can talk about Rochdale and you can talk about Forest Green and Sutton, but they've all been there recently. Oldham haven't been there that long ago. And have they earned the right to go straight back? Probably not. Hartlepool the same. So I think York is that team in there that, the turnaround from last season is incredible. And I agree. I think you find that they're the ones that have the potential, having not been in there for a little while, to get back in. And once they're in, potentially to stay in there.
Have York surprised you with how they've started this season? Because just from my perspective, before I'll get your opinion on it, but I look at York this season and I expected them to have a major improvement from last season, but I thought they were going to start quite poor. I thought with the amount of players that are coming in, it's a new team. I wouldn't say terribly poor like they were last season, but I didn't expect them to start as well as what they have done. Like going to places like Dagenham and winning, being quite strong at home as well. They've had one bad result, you'd probably say, throughout the season. They've gone to places like Southend, which is a very difficult place to go. I know Southend's position at the moment, it doesn't look like the best point in the world, but I think over the course of the season, we'll see how good of a point that was. For me, I look at York and I'm quite surprised. I thought it was going to take a bit of time from all the players to settle in, but it feels like they've probably been, well, they have. They've been one of the best sides in the division, haven't they, this season, and they've had a major improvement from last.
Oh, huge. It's night and day, and people might say that I've had a bit of a pop at Oldham this season. I felt similar to that with York last year, and what you got to look is what have they got that's available to them? What have Oldham got? What have Southend got now? They've got ownership. What have York got? They've all got a really good fan base. They've all got a decent enough stadium to attract 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 fans. They all run on an established full-time program. So what you got to think of, and where a lot of my frustration comes with some of these teams is they're not fulfilling that potential for whatever reason. And a lot of the time they are throwing money at it as well. I mean, I don't know about National League budgets. I've got no desire to really know, but there's a gut feel there that the likes of Oldham, the likes of York, I mean, York paid 6 figures for a National League player last year, who's now on loan at Ebbsfleet, are in the bottom half of the table.
And he won't very good either on Saturday. Player.
You've got to weigh up. What have they got to what they're doing? And York last season were massively underachieving to the potential they had. And there was a number of factors in that. They had a couple of managers, a change of ownership. Their recruitment was poor. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. They got Hinchelwood in the back end of last year. It took him a little time to get his philosophy over with the players that they had, because clearly the way that Hinchelwood plays is a very much it's a ball possession type style of play through the lines. They've got good wingers, an effective centre forwards. He had at Worthing. He didn't have that, be able to do that style with York originally. So it's had to take time for him to mould what he's got. He's got his pre-season. They've been more sensible with their transfers and their incomings, and got rid of some of all that they recruited last year who clearly weren't good enough. And now they're proving to everyone exactly what they could have probably done or should have done last year, 12 months later. So I'm not surprised, and it's good to see, because I've got nothing against York City, I've got nothing against Oldham. It's just, it frustrates the hell out of me when you see clubs like that with the resources and potential they have underachieving at the same time chucking money at that underachievement, and that's really frustrating as a National League fan, and I suppose as a blogger, pundit, whatever you call it. So that's where it comes from, and York are now proving themselves to be a decent club at this level.
I think for me, when you look at the so-called big clubs, and this goes across the board throughout the division, especially when they've got the budgets there, there's so much expectation. And because they've got the budget, everyone necessarily just thinks instantly, right, that's it, then they should be going for the title straight away. And if they don't get the title, or if they don't finish in the top 3, then they're a failure for that season. And you look at York last season, yes, they significantly underperformed, but it's going to take time. For me, I look at Ugla and I think he's learned from last season, because he attracted a lot of big names from the Football League. Woodyard, big name. Cordner, I think, was more for the effect of getting the fans on side. When you actually look at it, did they necessarily need to pay that amount? I think it was over 100 grand for a centre-half. I think it was actually announced that it was over 100 grand. Did you have to spend that much for a National League centre-half to still be playing in the National League? For me, no, not for a centre-half. Yet they brought him in. He's underperformed last season. He's been shipped out now. Where this season, it's a lot more sensible. They've attracted National League proven players across the board that actually fit into the style of play that Hinchelwood wants to play. They haven't just got any old striker out there. Like you mentioned there, Hinchelwood wants to play possession-based football that's quite fast-flowing going forward. Players like Sinclair fit that bill. Adam Pearce, he knows from his time at Worthing. They've got Adam Pearce in. What they could have done, they could have gone into leagues above and got someone like Medini, and I know they were rumoured to, and say, right, that's it. Or get someone else who's quite a big, well-known name, an aging player, and then bring him in. And for me, that don't work. Although it'll look good on paper, it'll look good to the fans, that doesn't necessarily mean it'll pay off overall. And I think they've done well where they're recruiting from the league below to give them this chance to step up, and then also recruiting players from other sides in the division who don't necessarily have the financial power that York do. If we speak about Oldham, and this last time that we'll talk about them at all, because I know we're talking a lot about them when we probably don't need to a certain extent. If you actually look at Oldham this season, it's not been an awful start. It just depends on what Oldham's expectations are. If you were wanting to win the title, you'd say Oldham, it's been a below average start. But I think the feel that I'm getting from Oldham fans this season, a lot of them have been a lot more realistic. And they're saying, no, we're not wanting to go for the title. We're wanting to get inside the playoffs. And that's what I personally think, the side that they've got at the moment, that should be the aim. Although I've put them to predicted them to finish 12th, Oldham have to be looking to get inside the playoffs this season. And if you think about the start overall, for me, I wouldn't say it's been an awful start. I'd say it's been an average start. I don't think they've set the world alight. I think there's still a lot for them to improve. But what Oldham have got is they've got the power to be able to attract more players. So they've got that budget, and this is where they'll probably get stronger throughout the season. Norwood's been out injured. He's come back. He's actually scored on his comeback. So he's another big player that's coming back as well. So for me, when you look at Oldham overall, it depends what the expectations are. I don't know what your thoughts are. Do you put it down to us maybe thinking Oldham should be going for the title, and that's why we're saying it's not been the best of starts? Or
yeah, I think so. I'm not going to say my views on Oldham, and I've seen them in the flesh, and I was very disappointed in them. I just can't understand how they've had so many seasons. And I know you've come up against Notts and Stockport and Wrexham and Chesterfield, but look at the size of the club. Look at the resources they've got. Look at the ownership they have. Everything points in that direction that they should be challenging more than they do. They should be more consistent than they are. Their home record last year at a place like Boundary Park, where you can get 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 people, was terrible. And they've got to be doing better. They've got to be doing better, unless they do come out and openly say, realistically, we need to do this, that, and the other just to consolidate. And I genuinely thought this season, this is going to be a season where they do get themselves together and they'll start to sort of.
I think overall, what I will just to come in there, I think overall, when I look at Oldham this season, it's not been a perfect start, but overall for me, I think we've seen improvements. For me, going to someone like Wheelstone, it sounds like it didn't play well, and you've had your views on that. But they've gone there and they've still got the result. Last season, they probably would have lost.
Listen, I'm not salty over the fact that they've beaten us. They beat us with a lucky goal, in my opinion. I would have taken that as an Oldham fan. I'll take it as a Wheelstone fan if it happened the other way around. I've got no problem with that whatsoever. What I kind of get frustrated with, as I say, is just where they should be to what they are. And if I was a fan of that football club, I'd be really frustrated myself. And I know there is a lot of that frustration going on. Okay, so, and this isn't to say, Luke, that they won't push on and they won't challenge. We are only 6-7 games into the season. I just imagine them to be better than they were when I saw them personally. I just imagine them to have better results. And I think Oldham fans would probably agree with that to a point. But they're still going to be up there challenging. And I'm not going to say otherwise. I'm just very disappointed in them being a National League fan, that they're not doing better than they probably could. When you look at what they are. You mentioned earlier about, you look at Rochdale, similar sort of club, not been in the National League as long, haven't gone about making a big song and dance about their business. But what they have done is they've got themselves new ownership. They've given their manager, Jim McNulty, a decent contract. They've given him the confidence by keeping him when they probably could have got rid of him. And they've gone and recruited well and quietly, and they're showing what you can do. And that, I think, is something that Oldham could have done. That's something that York are following now. So it's those big clubs in this league, the supposed big clubs, get very frustrated they're in the National League, but they don't help themselves. And by not helping themselves, they've just got to understand and respect that they're in this league, and they could be in it for another few seasons if they don't get it right.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that. And I think that's a good time to move on to Rochdale. A bit more on the more positive side is they currently sit fourth in the league. They've had one defeat this season so far. You look at some of the games they've had as well. They've had quite a tough start, a mixed start, but a tough start. They've had to play Forest Green, York as well. So the newly promoted side going there. Do you think that this season, when you look at Rochdale compared to last season it was about consolidating, they had the takeover, there were a lot of financial issues, but do you think this season, when you look at Rochdale, they can really push on and get into the playoffs?
Oh, without a doubt. And, it's not, they're not one of the smaller teams in the league because they come from the EFL only a couple of seasons ago. But they've come into the league and they've respected it and they understand how difficult it is. And I think it's testament to them that, we as our podcast and our chat we have on a Thursday haven't really mentioned too much about Rochdale. Anyone who follows Twitter or X and sees, there's a lot of there's a lot of things around Barnet. There's a lot of around Halifax, Forest Green, Sutton, all those. There's very little around Rochdale. They just get on with their business, and I think going under that radar and not being talked about too much is probably helping them, because that, we're not expecting them to do what we probably expect Oldham to do, when maybe we probably should because of who they are. But the fact that they had those ownership challenges, and that sort of quietly got changed. It wasn't in that media frenzy like, say, Southend was, and that obviously Southend was put into the media attention for obvious reasons because of the owner and the way he behaved. But Rochdale have just gone about their business, and I think they're going to be a real threat to everyone. They've got Aldershot on Saturday. Again, that's a good potential 1 to 3 points for them, and all of a sudden you're looking at top, consolidating top 4 if not higher. So I'll be interested to see how they play when I see them. I didn't see them last year away. I didn't go to the away games, so I've not seen Rochdale play too much. They've got 2 ex-Wheelstone players who are very good. So, if they've recruited them, then and their other recruitment's been as good as that, then I can see why they're 4th.
If you look at Rochdale, you look at the front three of Rodney, Mitchell as well, and McBride, who's come from Gateshead, and they've even got the likes of Alarakia as well. He was at your guys, probably one of the better players, you'd say, at your guys last season.
Yeah.
Rodney's a player for me that I shouldn't be playing at this level. If it weren't for injuries, he'd be playing a lot higher. Cairo Mitchell, since he's gone to Rochdale, it's the best thing he could have ever have done, because there were a lot of memes going about him when he's been at Chesterfield and Notts County, and he wasn't very rated very highly there. Where Rochdale fans, it seems they love him, and he's certainly producing a number of goals and assists this season, but also in the previous season as well. If we also look at the likes of Gateshead at the moment, currently top of the league, won that head-to-head against Eastleigh. I want to ask you this, and I know it's very early on in the season, but do you think Gateshead are genuine title contenders this season, or can you see them falling off within time? And also, I know I'm asking you 2 questions at once, but what sides from the first 6 games? I know a lot of people say we can't judge a season until you've played 10 games, but if you had to, let's say, think of a few sides that are going to be up there after what you've seen so far, who would those sides be?
I think I generally don't think we can ignore Gateshead. The fact that they started so well last season, lost their manager, had to rebuild in January when they lost a lot of loan players going back to their parent clubs or teams that took players, carried on rebuilding again, went to Wembley, and they've started where they left off this season. And to have a look here, to have 14 points, haven't lost a game. They're the only team that haven't lost a game, right? So
yeah,
that's pretty impressive, even 6 games in. I think genuinely they are title contenders, Luke. I think the challenge they've got is maybe a bit like last year, is if they keep impressing with the way they play football and the lads they recruit, they're going to lose some of those players naturally, because with all due respect to Gateshead, they're probably not a pool for players to stay if other clubs come in, whether it be wages wise or just the fact that you get to go and play at EFL level or potentially other National League teams. So, brilliant football club, brilliant management, brilliant recruitment, good set of fans, frustratingly poor stadium for them, but they've got everything. They've got everything they're going for them to be title contenders, and I can see that continuing, because once winning becomes a habit, Luke, winning becomes a habit, and they are winning football games. They were winning football games at the back end of last year. They're winning football games this year. That becomes a habit, and it's very, very hard to not fall out of that once it starts to happen. So they're going to be on a great run of form. They're going to be full of confidence. Everyone will want to keep playing. Players don't get injured. Players don't get tired when you're winning. It's one of those things, if you see what I mean. So yes, I can see them getting up there. Who's going to join them? I was very impressed when I saw Sutton, a young, hungry, very well-organised side, not massively exciting. I think York will be in there. Forest Green, definitely. I mean, they've got the financial muscle and know-how. Rochdale, as we said, Barnet. Eastleigh, I think, maybe one that probably won't stick around, but that's really difficult to sort of gut feel suggest they probably won't. If anyone, they're the ones that will drop. I think Sutton will Aldershot will probably not be able to sustain it. because they were a bit inconsistent back end of last year. And then likes of Oldham and Hartlepool with the power and money, except if they get themselves together, they're going to be up there. So a very, very even league, 6-7 games in, as we can see.
I think for me, for that question as well, I think Gateshead for me, I think are going to stay up there. And I actually predict them to finish just outside of the playoffs. And just on your point now about players leaving, this is where I kind of disagree this season, because if they're still up there, let's say in the top 3, when January transfer comes, I know that's a long time off. We've only actually played 6 games. But if they're still there when we get to that window, players, wouldn't you think, would want to stay there and get the job done? There's clearly a good group there. The manager's clearly having a great effect on them. Rob Elliott as well. He's new to management. For me, if I were playing for Gateshead, I'd think, you know what, I'm going to see it out to the end of the season, see if I can get promoted with Gateshead. And if not, that's when I can get my big move. And that's what I think most Gateshead players would be thinking potentially. Whereas last season, they were on the verge of falling outside of the playoffs. They were in and out of the playoffs throughout last season. And that's why maybe a lot of players left. It's like when Halifax a couple of seasons ago were 4th. January, we didn't lose a single player, and there were so many players there that could have gone. And then at the end of the season, they all left. Where last season, Millie Ali left in January. We've seen Thompson Sommers leave now. For me, I just think it depends on how well Gateshead are doing in January. If they're just kind of outside of the playoffs, that's when teams are going to come in, because players are going to think, well, we're not going to get in the playoffs with Gateshead this season. So for me, with Gateshead, I think they'll be fine. Barnet, I think, will be up there again. Forest Green, I think Sutton. I think Southend, although they've started quite poorly, I think they'll come good throughout the season. And I think Hartlepool will as well. I think they're going to be up there as well for me. Oldham, I'm yet to be seen. I think there's still a lot to come from them. Norwood coming back. The thing we've got to remember is they can still bring in players as well. So they're going to be one to watch as well. But yeah, I think we'll move on from that. I'll ask you that question in a few weeks' time when we can judge it a little bit more. We'll come back to the live chat actually before we get on the predictions. 76 people watching at the moment. It's a good time to ask you guys to like and subscribe. Also check out our sponsors, Cards Accepted. Use a link in the description. You'll get 50% off your order. We've got the Predictions League coming up, which is also sponsored by Paul's company, which we'll give a shout out when we get onto that very shortly as well. Get your predictions in when we do get onto the predictions as well, and also get your comments in too. Someone's come in and said, Elliot, who's an Aldershot fan, has actually come in and said, if I can get it up, have you started doing your predictions yet? No, we haven't yet. Caroline's come and said Cordner was excellent for us. We've had Cardinals Ultra up the walking, another side. Although they had a defeat at the weekend against Rochdale, I think overall have surprised us a little bit. Never side for me that I still think that there's a long way to go and a lot of obstacles in Working's way. We've had Septic, who's coming. I think it's an Ebbsfleet fan, and said Cordner's at the turning circle of a barge. Nearly every he's a York fan. Signing last season was bad, much better this season. Elliot's coming, he's a Southend fan, and said Southend fan, not expecting a good game on Saturday. 2 great defences, 2 woeful attacks. And then we've had Cam Wheelstone, please stop beating York. And then
I'd like to say yes, but no. I think Wilson need to win on Saturday, just to help our cause. But yeah, we seem to have a bit of a voodoo over York at home and away, and yeah, we'll see how that goes Saturday, won't we? I think we're now seeing we're in a position where York are going to be probably more of the favourite, whereas previously that might not have always been the case. So we'll see how that goes on Saturday.
Difficult place to go though for York. Wheelstone have kind of picked up in the last couple of weeks as well. Chris has come in and said we still have players under Unsworth here that are not up to it. Yeah, that's something. And we saw in the summer a lot of players were shipped on from Oldham, and it's a bit of a smaller squad now, I believe, as well. Rochdale will be up there. A lot of people are saying Rochdale top 7, he said, definitely. Ash has come in and said 100% Gateshead are title contenders. And then Elliot's come in and said, how on earth did you predict 4-3 Maidenhead correctly last week? Pure knowledge, mate. Pure knowledge. And then we've had, just for the record, being serious, Gateshead were very lucky to get a draw at Boundary Park, and I'm being serious now. But this is what we say. If we think about Oldham, though, going to Wealdstone, according to Paul, you were lucky to get a win there, if that makes sense. And I think if you look at it overall, and this is probably what we should do more often, Gateshead have started very well. You look at the amount of goals they're scoring. There's a lot of promise there for Gateshead to be title contenders. If you look at Oldham overall, it's not been an awful start. They've had some good results there, but there's still been signs. And this is where we're saying that they've still got weaker players, I know, and you're still going to recruit. And I think the fan base seems to think that you're going to get stronger throughout the season. If you look at it at the moment at Oldham, there's still teething problems there. And there will be with every club. But at the moment, I think Oldham, you kind of highlighting because of the size of the club. But like I've said, overall, it's not been an awful start for you guys. Yeah, a lot of Oldham fans are saying Gateshead were poor. I think we're probably at a point now where we should get on with the predictions. Let's get on with the predictions then. 80 people watching at the moment. Please like and subscribe. I'll put the predictions league up in a second if I can actually load it here. Let me get it up here. I think that's it there. Right. So I've got the scores here for you guys to look at. Paul, a good week for you. Still 3 points gap. It's getting closer and closer every single week. Let me get predictions up. You're on mute, Paul.
Sorry, guys. I put it on mute because the dogs are going mad in the background. Yeah, I'm happy that you might have got your full 3 mega result there, but I managed to claw another point. So it's now a 3-point gap, Luke. So let's hope I have another good week. It's a very difficult one to go with this week because there's, apart from a couple of games, they're sort of top half versus bottom half. And again, a few where you're looking and go, one could beat the other. So an interesting mixed bag of fixtures, but I don't think there's a bad game in there this week, actually.
No, there's quite a lot of good ones for me. We've had, is Halifax up there, up for sale because of the rugby? No, we're not. The stadium is. And it's interesting to see if the rugby are going to pay anything towards that. I know we've had a few issues between the football and the rugby. And we've had a few other people have tuned in. We've got Ali, who's another Woking fan, has tuned in tonight. We had another Maidenhead fan who were listening for the first time. Good to see another Maidenhead fan joining us as well. Good club. I think we both respect Maidenhead quite highly as well because of what they've done and how they're managing season on season to prove everyone wrong and stay in the National League. It's going to be difficult this season for me personally, but we're probably saying that last season as well. But yeah, we're probably at a point now where we can put the predictions up. So I'll take away the predictions league. 3 points in it. I think this is the game week where you could maybe take over, Paul. So it's certainly going to be an interesting one. We'll have a look at the league table though before we get on with the predictions. Gateshead leading the way. Eastleigh after a defeat in second. Barnet, Rochdale, Forest Green, York, and Aldershot make up the playoffs. Aldershot going strong. They're on the other side, a few teething problems, you might say. Seem to do better against the so-called better sides, but when it comes to playing the sides that are clearly down there this season, Aldershot are the side gifting sides wins. You know, Braintree, I think their only win was actually against Aldershot, and I think that's the same with Tamworth as well. But they did beat Maidenhead on Saturday, who are a bit of a bogey side. Sutton, Oldham and Hartlepool and Yeovil make the top half. And then we've got Woking, Solihull and Halifax. Halifax, a good win for them at Ebbsfleet. Maybe not the best performance in the world. Altrincham, Southend. I think Altrincham and Southend, not the ideal starts for them, you might say, but there's still a long way to go. Dagenham, Braintree and Fylde and Wealdstone make up the side surviving. And in the bottom four, we've got Tamworth, Maidenhead, Boston and Ebbsfleet. There will be people out there that actually predicted that bottom four. So if the season ended now, that would be a good one. Maybe not in that order, but Ebbsfleet, they seem like the side that are really, really struggling at the moment, don't they, Paul?
Oh, yeah, without doubt. I mean, obviously I haven't seen them play, but there's a lot of social media sort of comments about how disorganized they seem and how bad they just are, considering they had a bright end to last season, didn't they? They changed the manager. But yeah, has recruitment been that bad? I generally don't know, but they just cannot pick any results up. And after 6 games, to be -10 in the goals column is pretty worrying. To think that they're 10 goals worse off after 6 games. That's quite bad. So like you said, I don't think anyone would have predicted much different to that bottom 4 or 5 or 6 with Wilson and Fylde in there, maybe Braintree as well. So yeah, I'm not surprised that bottom 7 is what it is. It's very difficult for the promoted sides to come up and make a good fist of it. I think Yeovil are the best place purely because of their fan base and, again, the resources and the structure they have in place already from their previous sort of successes higher up the leagues. And they're the ones that are sort of trying to make themselves to come back up. So yeah, I think those bottom 7 or 8 they're the ones that really need to start beating each other at that bottom half of the table, almost that mini relegation table, because that's where your points are going to come from. So I think you've got to look at winnable games, and the winnable games are those teams in and around you, I'd imagine. So these teams have to start picking up points fairly quickly just to establish themselves slightly higher up that league.
I think one of those sides will come out in the next couple of weeks, though. It seems to always happen and shoot up the table. For me, I think if you actually look at the promoted sides, I don't think any of them have had a horrendous start. Boston, for me, they're the ones that I think are going to struggle this season, particularly. And we've also had Tamworth as well. But I think overall, if you look at Tamworth's start, it's not been an awful start, beating Aldershot. They've had some very bad results there. Boston, they're another side where they had an awful start to the season, managed to get that first win away at York. And yeah, it's just a hard one with sides like that are coming up to just get a bit of a run going. But I think for me, Ebbsfleet, they're the side that, unless they change manager soon, I think they're really going to struggle, because when they played against us, it felt like they were playing the completely wrong system. They couldn't put 2 passes together. So what they were doing, they were forcing it in the air all the time, which were playing right into our hands. Defensively, I've not seen a worse side in a long time. And this is why I'm saying why I feel we weren't up to scratch, was the fact that we should have won 3-0, 4-0. And we hit deep, and they were probably we didn't create much at all. Yet Ebbsfleet were that open. We should have probably gone on to win that game quite comfortably, to be honest. They offered nothing going forward. Polian couldn't even get into the game. And there were no one for me that stood out for Ebbsfleet. So I think they're going to have to change manager very soon. Otherwise, they will be going down. I don't know what your thoughts are on the management Ebbsfleet. Do you feel that they're going to have to change? Because I was actually like the fact he was staying because he did so well last season, but it's not working this season at all, is it?
No, it's so difficult, isn't it, to sort of decide when that time may have to come as a team. Are they sitting there thinking, we have got 1 point, it is only 6 games, we are performing to a level where we might get some more results, we've got to stick with it? But then you do that and you become cut adrift from everyone. I mean, they're already 3 points adrift of 4 points adrift of the teams in the players above them. So do you then cut your losses now and get a new manager in? But then he's got then an awful lot of games with players that aren't his players, and it's a really tough one. And the other thing is that you've got to look at, is there anyone out there better place that's available, for instance, to be able to come in and take a job on that's a challenge? There's no two ways about it. I can't imagine there's that many managers, unless they're desperate to get into management or back into management or into management at a higher level, that they would take on a football club that's got 1 point from 6 games and they're -10 in the goals column, and having watched them play like you did, turn around and say, I'm not surprised they're bottom of the league. So it's a really difficult one for them to go and find a person that's a better place than the manager they've already got.
I think if you look,
the only thing you do say is, do they have a different set of eyes, a different voice, a different culture? It just, that may be what they need. When you change it, it's a difficult one to judge, really.
Someone's mentioned Neil Ardley available for Ebbsfleet. Could you see him travelling all the way down there to manage Ebbsfleet just to keep him up in the division? I think he'd like to be thinking that he could get a job with a team who will be aiming for the playoffs this season. He was at York last year, who I think, without being disrespectful to Ebbsfleet, have had a lot higher expectations even last season, although they underperformed. Down McMahon, the ex-Dagenham manager, I don't know if he's in work at the moment. He could be someone, but he's another manager that I'm not that keen on, to be honest. I think off the top of my head, there are many other managers out there that you could think of. Definitely, you can't think of managers that would definitely be up for taking the Ebbsfleet job and being able to actually keep them up at the moment, because they are struggling. But someone's actually put they don't think the bottom four will change much, and you can see why, can't you? Because a lot of people at the start of the season predicted those 6 or 7 sides to be around there, and they're all kind of around there. So you can kind of see why, but I'm sure 1 or 2 things will change because they always seem to. First game then that we will predict. Get your predictions in, guys. Paul, sorry, I do apologise. I forgot to give your page a plug. Would you like to just announce that to everyone who's watching?
I've very willingly sponsored Luke for the predictions element of his podcast that obviously we go through, and we played a game against each other. So yeah, I run a travel business with my wife, PTF Travel. So anyone's got any holiday travel requirements, then please don't hesitate to drop me a line on Twitter or through Luke's Twitter feed, through a personal message, and we'd be more than happy to sort of help you. We can service any type of holiday requests, from a midweek break, city breaks, package holidays, expeditions, skiing, cruising. We do a lot. So give us a shout. We'd be more than happy to look after you. And it'd be great to have some Luke Walsh listeners on board as customers.
Yeah, please do go follow them, guys, because I can't highly rate them enough. And we've also had Joel who's coming, and he's actually said, this shows our knowledge on leagues below us. McMahon is at Hornchurch, did manage Ebbsfleet in the past, so that would have been an interesting one. Oldham manager 12-1 for Carlisle job. Any chance he went? Not for me. I think he'll stay unless it starts to get a little bit toxic at Oldham, which I don't think it will at the moment. They seem to be a lot more happy with Mellon in charge at the moment, I think, overall. And then someone said, Paul, can you sort a flight out to Newcastle for Gateshead away? That's from a Woking fan. Can you do that, Paul?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we could. We got agents that do all sorts of things like that. So if you want to give me a shout, I can always sort it out for you. And hotels in Gateshead as well. So I know some of the Wheelstone fans have done that this season. They flew up to Gateshead from London because it was actually, believe it or not, cheaper than the train. So yeah, it's a good option to look at. But give us a shout if you need any assistance with it.
Someone's actually put, before we do get into the predictions, who do you think will sack first in the National League? I think the obvious one is Danny Serling of Ebbsfleet at the moment. It does feel like that's going to be the obvious one. But like I've said, who's going to come in? Is there anyone else for you, Paul, who you think could be sacked first in the National League?
I hope this doesn't happen. I don't think it will happen. But you look at someone like Kevin Mayer at Southend, if they don't pick up where they have been doing under all that pressure they had, now that pressure's off. It's just, I suppose, a different type of pressure. I'm not suggesting 1 minute he's under any scrutiny, but it's that sort of manager where a team, although not bottom of the league, are underperforming. There's a lad at Dagenham, he's Ben Strevens. Is he under a little bit of pressure? The all-team manager, Altrincham don't strike me as a team that will just willy-nilly change their manager. There's a structure to them. So I think you're right. I think Danny Searle is definitely going to be up there as a 2-1 favourite sort of scenario as getting the sack first.
I could see Dagenham's manager being sacked because they haven't won since the opening day. A lot of results there where they've been at home as well. They've got some tough games coming up after Maidenhead, which I think in itself is a tough place to go. But Sutton, Gateshead, I think after those games, with those being 2 home games, we'll see where Dagenham are at, and we might be talking about them in quite a negative way in the future. But I think with it being such an early stage, for me, I think it's quite hard to judge, because the only manager for me at the moment that's under any scrutiny is the Ebbsfleet manager, and even Ebbsfleet fans at the moment, there's only probably half of them that are actually saying that they want the Ebbsfleet manager to go. Someone said, Paul, can you sort me out a trip to the UK for the playoff final? Oldham fans in peace. He lives in France.
Yeah, no, of course we can. We can do that. No problem at all.
Brilliant. No. We'll get on with the predictions then. Fylde versus Yeovil. Yeovil have had a great start, 11th in the league table at the moment. I think they're a side. They only had one defeat, and that was to Hartlepool. Fylde kind of slipped off a little bit, haven't they, at the moment? That's good, just going off like that. For me, though, I think it'll be a draw this one. I'm going for a 1-1 draw. How do you see it going, Paul?
I've gone with a Fylde 1, Yeovil 2. I think Yeovil pretty good going forward. The only challenge Yeovil got is I believe they're struggling for centre halves at the moment, so they were hoping to bring a couple in. But having seen Fylde play against Wealdstone, they're fairly toothless. So I think even if you've got centre halves in there that aren't necessarily playing every week or that's not their natural position, they genuinely didn't look like they would cause anyone any problems. They are at home though, so I suppose that's something to consider. It's quite a long way to go for Yeovil, but I think Yeovil are showing that they can compete in this league. They've been close games right away across the board for them, picked up some good results, and so I think that will continue on Saturday and they'll win 2-1.
Someone said, give Paul's company some love, people. We've had everyone coming up with their predictions, 1-1, 2-1 Yeovil, 1-1. A lot of people agreeing with me, 1-1. And then we've also had 1-1 and a 2-1 Yeovil. So they've even been 1-1, 2-1. Oh, we did have a 2-2 up there from Declan. For me, when I look at Fylde so far this season, I think you probably caught them on a very off day, because I think they do have that forward power at the moment. They've got Horton. The only issue you might say, looking in without seeing them actually play a full game so far this season, it does feel like they're relying on Horton a little bit too much on the forward front. But for me, I think as the season goes on, other players will step up. Someone said 2-0 Yeovil. So we'll move on to the next game then. I'll make a note of my 1-1 prediction. Altrincham versus Ebbsfleet. Altrincham, you made a comment the other week about Altrincham having quite a tough start, and maybe that's why they've not set the world alight so far this season. You can't say that this is a tough game, can you? They don't come any easier on paper, do they, with Ebbsfleet sitting bottom at the moment. Maybe you'd say Ebbsfleet are due a result, but I think Altrincham will have too much for them. I think most sides will, if Ebbsfleet play how they have done so far this season. I'm going to go for a 2-0 Altrincham win.
Oh, I've gone with 3-0. I think Altrincham, when they get a tune out of their players, they play very well, and they are at home. And as you said, Ebbsfleet are already -10 in the goals column, and I think that's going to be made even worse this week with Altrincham making amends for that really bad start and trying to take advantage of playing someone like Ebbsfleet, and I think they'll win 3-0.
I think for me, when I look at Ebbsfleet, I do feel like there are individuals in that side that are clearly underperforming. So the ability is clearly there. You look at Tyler Cordner, you have that ability. He's not going to have lost that ability within a season, because before he was at York, everyone was saying he's the best centre-half in the whole of the National League when he was at Altrincham. And now he's becoming a bit of a mockery, isn't he, online? York fans weren't too keen on him, and Ebbsfleet fans haven't been so far. So you'd like to think that hopefully he can get up to scratch. Kellerman as well. He's not really set the world alight. I don't think he had a good season last season at Woking either. But there's a player in there, Polian. He needs to start firing. So for me, I just think they're playing the completely wrong system at Ebbsfleet. And I do hope that changes at some point. But defensively, they're struggling quite a lot. Here are the predictions then. We've had Altrincham 3, Ebbsfleet 0, 1-0 to Alte, 2-1 Alte. That's back to the Yeovil game. Horton FC 1, Yeovil 2, 6-0 Alte, 2-0 Alte, 3-0 Alte, 3-0 Alte, and 3-0 Alte. We'll move on to the next game then now. This is the next one then. Braintree versus Woking. Braintree have had a bit of a difficult start, you might say, coming into the National League, but I think a lot of people have got quite high hopes for them with how they recruited in the summer. They're coming against the Woking side that have just lost 3-0 away at Rochdale. How do you see this one going, Paul?
I've gone with a 1-1 draw. It's one of those, I would imagine, quite even teams on paper. Done very well. Woking have exceeded expectation, I think, from what we were sort of predicting a month or so ago. So Braintree just getting themselves into the league, made some huge signings for them as a club coming back into the National League. So I'm going with a 1-1 draw on this. So I can't really divide them. And it's one, I think, if I'm honest, that's probably the least inspiring game of the game week.
I'm going to go for a 0-0 draw for me for this one. Yeah, I'd probably have to agree with you on that one. We'll move on to the next game then now. Eastleigh v Tamworth. Eastleigh, first defeat of the season away at Gateshead. I think the question is with them, is that defeat going to have an effect on them? Because you often see sides when they have good starts of the season and overperform, when they do get that defeat, often a lot of them tail off, but you'd like to think them being at home against Tamworth, who a lot of people have tipped to go down this season, that they can win this game. I'm going to go for, I think I'll go for a 2-0 Eastleigh win again.
Oh, I've gone. I suppose the big result this week: Eastleigh 4, Tamworth 1. Eastleigh are second in the league. Apart from Ebbsfleet, I think playing Tamworth this week is going to be the best. Is your best sort of match to bounce back from a loss. I mean, to get 7-0 away from home, no matter who you're playing. I know they were playing Barnet, who are going to be a strong side this season. To lose 7-0 in the National League is not something that comes along too often. And I think Eastleigh will take advantage of that. Tamworth, I suppose, they've got to look at, can we bounce back from that? Is there a response out of the players? Was it a one-off? But genuinely, I think Eastleigh are going to be too strong for Tamworth and win 4-1.
Yeah, just looking at some of the predictions before, we had a 1-0 Woking and a 5-0 Woking there. A lot of people are backing Eastleigh, as you'd expect. A few people are actually backing Tamworth to get a result. 1-0 Tamworth we've had a 2-1 Tamworth as well. Someone's agreed with you there. Chris Stringer's gone 4-1. A lot of people have said 4-1 actually. And then a Tamworth fan's come in and said 6-0 Eastleigh from a Tamworth fan. He also made a comment about them being a lot better at home than what they are away. And I think that's something that I think Tamworth are going to have to rely on if they want to survive, is playing that to their advantage of the home surface that they've got, where I think it's a 3G pitch, isn't it? There, it's quite tight as well. And I think for me, Tamworth have got to play that to their advantage this season if they want to stay up. But yeah, I think Eastleigh will pull through. Gateshead v Barnet. Is this the most mouth-watering game, you'd say, this game week? The current league leaders against the title favourites, Barnet, who've just won 7-0. First versus third. Yeah, would you say this is the most mouth-watering game?
Oh, without doubt, Luke. I think this is game of the week. Gateshead are a good footballing side. Barnet are a good, their pace and power. Dean Brennan likes to play on the front foot. Both clearly capable of scoring goals. So yeah, I think Gateshead have got a little advantage being at home, I guess, is the way of looking at it. And they're going to be hugely better than Tamworth were, I should imagine. So it's a difficult one. I have gone with the Gateshead to win purely because they're at home and they're on a really good run of form. Barnet slightly less consistent, so that's why I've gone with the Gateshead 3, Barnet 1.
I think it'll be high scoring for me, but I am going to back Gateshead to win once again. I'm going to go for 4-2 Gateshead win for me. Maybe that's my freak result of the game week. A lot of people are going for goals in this game, as you'd expect. Kabamba for Barnet. They've got a lot of forward options, Barnet, but so have Gateshead this season, to be fair to them. Hartlepool v Halifax, two quite industrial sides, play quite similar now. Hartlepool are known to be quite physical this season, and Halifax have always been known to be quite defensively strong. How do you see this one going, Paul?
I couldn't agree with you more, Luke. As I say, I mean, the word I would describe is quite attritional, aren't they, both sides? And big, strong, physical. They'll match each other up. There won't be a yard given. Two good northern teams. It's got its makings for a real rough and tumble sort of stalemate of a game. And I've gone with 1-1 in terms of the result. I can't divide them.
I can see why for this one, to be honest. I think it'll be low scoring, although I think at Hartlepool particularly have clearly got forward options, especially with Medine coming now. I think they will cancel each other out in a way. Yeah, it's a hard one to predict. I ain't got my predictions with me, so I'm kind of doing it on the spot here. But for me, maybe I'm being a little bit biased, but I just think it's the sort of game where Halifax will thrive and will probably end up going up there and winning. If we play like we did at Ebbsfleet, then we won't. But I think we'll kind of turn it up a gear for a side like Hartlepool. And if we can keep Desaruwe quiet, then we might be all right, because I think that's how we know it's going to go. It's going to go balls into the box from both sides. And I think Halifax will probably play on the break. And maybe if the fixture were the other way around, I'd be back in Hartlepool because of how the way sides will play. And I just feel Halifax might be able to kind of catch them on the break here. So I'm going to go for, I think we always know it'll be low scoring, but a 1-0 Halifax win. Next game then, Maidenhead v Dagenham. Maybe this is one of those less mouth-watering games. Maidenhead, two sides though that are in the bottom half at the moment. I think Maidenhead will win this game for me. I'm going to go for a 1-0 Maidenhead win. A bit unlucky against Aldershot, and being at home, I think Dagenham are trying to play football, aren't they, this season with the players they've recruited? Dion Pereira, players like that, Moraes there. A lot of them haven't lived up to expectation. I think Pereira's been the star man for them this season, but players like Moraes hasn't come back and been the same player. Gregor Cox hasn't stepped up. So I'm going to go back Maidenhead to win this game. How do you see it going, Paul?
I'll go with another 1-1 draw for this one. Difficult to sort of, again, divide them. It's the sort of game that Maidenhead probably should win. Probably won't win because it's not a Barnet or a Gateshead. Those typical results we see Maidenhead pull out of the bag. But listen, I saw Dagenham at the beginning of the season. Their only win was against Wealdstone. They were fairly toothless up top. Dion Pereira was definitely, the screen shows there. He got a 9.4 out of 10 in his performance against Wealdstone, and he was really the difference. And someone's just put on there that Dion Pereira might be out, and if he's out of that game, they're going to really struggle. There, Joel said, Maidenhead's a tough place to go. You've got to kick up the hill at least one half. They know what they're doing. They're going to be well organised. There's no real forward threat from Dagenham as yet. I don't think the likes of Uma and Junior Moraes have sort of set the world alight. And then you're in and out of team fitness, all those sorts of things between the two of them as examples. So I can't see it being a particularly exciting game, and that's, I think, 1-1 is a fair reflection of where the teams are at the moment.
This is quite a good game, I think, as well, because of the size of both clubs. I think a lot of people would say these are the two biggest clubs in the division with the crowds they get. I think they've both averaged the highest so far this season. Oldham and Southend. We've talked about the Southend. I think not had the best of starts this season overall. Maybe you'd say, like we've said, we're still only 6 games in. Oldham aside, that being at home, this is the sort of game where we're going to see have they improved on their home form from last season. Because you look at them at home so far, I think they were beaten at home at the moment, but they're still not putting sides away. Fylde, Gateshead, dropping points to these sides. You look at Gateshead being first, maybe that'll look like a good point, but according to Oldham fans, they didn't think much to Gateshead, so maybe they should be going into that winning it. It's a hard one to predict, but I'm going to go for another 1-1 for me. How do you see it going, Paul?
I mean, Oldham fans that are watching and listening, please don't fall off your seats. But I've gone with Oldham 2, Southend 1. Now, I think, like you said, Luke, Oldham are at home, they're unbeaten at home. Southend can't get any rhythm. Southend are desperate for a centre forward. They can't, they haven't got a centre forward in their building to of note to be able to get them some goals. And I think Oldham will just be too strong. And they've got to make Boundary Park a feared place to go, and beating the likes of Southend is what they need to do to start putting the fear in other teams that come along saying, Christ, they're unbeaten. They beat Southend. There's 6,000-7,000 in the ground, and really make it a difficult place for other teams to come, which they didn't do last year. So I think Oldham are just slightly better placed than Southend in terms of their results and the way they're playing and what the personnel they've got, and I think they will win 2-1.
Paul, are you okay, mate? That's the comments we've got from Chris.
This is what I mean, Luke. I'm fair. I'm fair. I'd say what I see, and it's a personal opinion. I genuinely think Oldham will win this week. I can't imagine it's going to be a particularly exciting football match, but it's they need to win, and I think they will.
Yeah, two sides that are clear, a bit like Hartlepool and Halifax, both very strong defensively. Both kind of had their issues going forward, more Southend than Oldham. Next match we've got then Solihull. This is v Forest Green. When we talk about this game week being good, this is another good game for me. Solihull have improved in the last couple of weeks. Forest Green, I think, have still only got that one defeat this season. I think Solihull might have only one defeat as well. I think this will be really high scoring. And when we go about freak results, I'm going to go for another 3-3 for this game. I just think there'll be a lot of goals in it. Both sides have got the forward power. For me, how do you see it going, Paul?
I've gone with a Forest Green to win 2-0. It could be any sort of result, couldn't it? Solihull really overachieved last year, really overachieved. And sometimes you're a victim of your own success and the expectations are then increased. And I think Solihull, as a team in the National League, punched above their weight last year and have done very well in the recent years. And, to try and keep up with that again is always going to be a tough challenge. And they're finding that a little bit at the moment. They're a bit inconsistent. Win, lose, draw, win, draw is a bit of an inconsistent sort of pattern. I think Forest Green are just... one loss, 2 wins on the bounce. I could just see them being a bit too strong for Solihull. A lovely playing surface up there at Danson Park as well. So I think that will play into the hands of Forest Green and the sort of what they're maybe used to in the EFL. So I think it's just going to be a bit too strong for Solihull. But it, on paper, appears to be a good game.
We'll move on to the next game then now. We'll go to Sutton v Boston, newly promoted Boston coming up against relegated Sutton. We talk about Sutton and Forest Green and how well they've actually started this season compared to how a lot of sides often do. That the trend is sides come down and they struggle, and maybe they'll get better as the season goes on. Rochdale and Hartlepool, I think, did okay when they came down, but it feels like Sutton and Forest Green are both going to be in and around the playoffs come the end of the season, although Sutton did have that defeat against Forest Green. I think this is the sort of game that you'd want if you're wanting to bounce back from a defeat against Boston, who are down there. I'm going to go for a 3-1 Sutton win. Boston are known, to be fair, to get that win like they did at York. Will they do it again? For me, no, I think Sutton will win 3-1. How do you see it going, Paul?
I've got exactly the same result for that one, 3-1 to Sutton. What Sutton don't want to see is what their current results are. 2 wins and then 2 draws. Does that become 2 losses? And all of a sudden they're dropping away. Boston played Yeovil on Saturday. I managed to catch up with Mark Cooper and asked him how his game was against Boston, and he was complimentary as much as he said Boston were big, strong and busy, and I think that's probably what they're going to rely on maybe a little bit more. They brought in a bit of experience as well, haven't they? And I think if they can just get their foothold in this league and consolidate a little bit, they're going to be okay. But they're not an easy one. It's not an easy place to go, Boston. So they're going to have to make their home place a difficult place, but what are they going to be like away from home against the likes of Sutton, who have come from the EFL? Admittedly, they've changed a lot of their squad, but they do look young, ready to go, organised, not particularly exciting, but very organised. And I think they're going to be too strong for Boston on this occasion.
So Boston fans come and said 1-0. Boston away performance been pretty decent this season, but we need to stop letting sloppy goals in the first 10 minutes. A lot of people, of course, are backing Sutton to win this game. Ash has come in and said 4-0 as well, 2-0 to Sutton. Next game then that we will have a look at, Wealdstone v York, your boys against York. I think for me, when you look at this one, it's going to be a bit of a tricky game for York. Wealdstone have clearly improved in the last couple of weeks, winning against Fylde. Was it Solihull? I think they went all the way up there and actually got a point there as well. I don't think this will be an easy game for York at all, but I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. How do you see it going, Paul?
I have gone for a 1-0 win to the Stones, purely because they're at home. You know, they've done quite well down at the Vale. You know, historically over the last couple of seasons, they do have the hoodoo over York a little bit, but it's going to be a tougher one than it's been previously for Wealdstone. And I can see there's a lot of predictions going for York, which I'm not surprised about, and that may well happen. I think I may be just going a little bit biased and saying Wealdstone are going to win 1-0, but we'll wait and see.
We'll move on to the next one then. Aldershot versus Rochdale. This is another game that has the potential to be a great game. Both sides have clearly got forward power. Rochdale coming into this after winning 3-0. Aldershot coming into this after winning 4-3. This will be a high-scoring game, but I think I'm going to back Aldershot with them being the home side. 3-2 to Aldershot. How do you see it going, Paul?
I've gone 2-2 draw, so quite a high-scoring draw. Very evenly matched, aren't they? 11 points, 10 points. Shots are 1-3, but lost 2. Rochdale have only lost 1, but only picked up 2 wins. I say only, still decent return. But two teams I think on their day can score lots of goals, and on their day I think Aldershot can let a lot of goals in. Rochdale's still okay defensively, aren't they? But I think it's an exciting game for the neutral. I would say that's probably one of the better footballing games, one of the more exciting games, and I can't divide them. So I've gone Aldershot 2, Rochdale 2.
I think what you often get with a lot of sides that have good attacks, they may well also have good defences, but the fact is because they have good attacks, they're going to attack more, which are going to leave gaps at the back. And that's something maybe you might say of Aldershot. I think Aldershot are a side that have had a lot of problems defensively this season with injuries more. They came to Halifax and did an absolute job on us defensively, but then every other game they've kind of struggled a little bit on the defence sort of side, and that's because the likes of Jenkins has been out injured and McCormick as well. I'm not sure if they're going to be back for this game, but we'll wait and see. I think that more or less wraps up the predictions. Thanks to everyone that's tuned into that. Numbers have been great once again. It feels like not just the YouTube, but also on Twitter with the Twitter Spaces, the National League's really coming together with these podcasts, particularly at the moment. That's a plug to the Twitter space that we do on Sunday. If you want to have your say on your club when you actually speak about them, then join me and Rob from Non-League Full Time on Sunday when we'll do our Twitter space on the National League. That is on Twitter, and you get to have your views as well on there, and you can speak if you would like to. Also, a shout out to our sponsors, Cards Accept, to do sponsor the entire podcast. Please use the link in the description below to get your card machine, no contracts or monthly fees. These are the scores on the doors for those that are still with us for the predictions, 37-34. Remember to like and subscribe as well. One final thing, if you want to become a channel member, you can do. I think you've got to be on a MacBook or not a MacBook, sorry, on a computer or some sort of device like that, and there should be a join button for you to actually join. You can use your badge, a link in the description. You can get to use your badge. We'll see what people are saying, because a lot of people have come in before we bring things to a close. Thanks, gents. Relax about the old and banter, always laughing with you. And then we've had good podcast game. See you guys soon. What time is it Sunday, and are you recording it? I'll try to remember to record. I think... I'll remember to record. I think it's going to be about 8 o'clock that we'll do it. Nice, lads. Cheers for tuning in once again. Lee, still a Wrexham fan, we should add as well. He still tunes in with us every week. And they've had Chris, who said in good podcast. Paul, anything to add finally?
No, unfortunately, I won't be at the Vale on Saturday. I'm off to Dublin tomorrow night to watch England in the Nations League against Ireland on Saturday afternoon. So I'll be watching the National League results from afar on Flashscore and Twitter. So I'll be looking at the predictions and hope I've gained some points on you, Luke. And I'm not going to be at the Wealdstone game on Tuesday either because I'm going to England to watch them at Wembley against Finland. So I've got a couple of games away from the Stones and the National League, but I will be keeping an eye on it. I promise everybody. And we'll see where it lies by this time next week when we do our pod again.
Living the high life. Going to watch England at Wembley, though, over Wealdstone. I think even me, a game like Finland, it's not the most attractive sort of games we watch in England, but I'm guessing you're doing that for the Caps.
I am doing that for the Caps. I want to go to the World Cup with the kids in a couple of years' time in America and Canada. So, yeah, I've joined the England Supporters Travel Club so over the rest of the family and hope that we can gain enough caps in the next couple of years to get ourselves out to America and Canada. And obviously having a travel business will help with the travel costs and arranging that when we go out there. So, yeah, it's a bit of a challenge for me. I wouldn't be choosing to watch England over Wealdstone generally, but it's the kids want to go, and so I'll be going with them and watching England on this occasion.
Yeah, and Dublin tomorrow, that'll be a good one for yourself. I know my dad's going to that one. I was unfortunately didn't manage to get a ticket in the away end, so I'll be travelling up to Hartlepool with my mates for that one on Saturday. It should be a good game, to be fair. That one, looking forward to that. Should be taking a decent following. Also, let us know where you guys are all heading at the weekend on Twitter. Drop me a message if you anything that you want to talk about, as in like anything you want on the podcast. If you've got anything that you might disagree with what we do, if there's any suggestions on ways to improve it, then please drop us a comment. If you want to come on the Twitter Spaces to learn more about that, drop me a message on there. I'm also on Instagram. Just type my name and I should come up. Paul's on Twitter as well if you want to speak to him. His should be on all my Twitter posts where we promote the podcast, so go check him out as well. I think that might as well be it. So thank you to everyone that's tuned in tonight. We hope to see you again in the future if you are new. And we will see you next time. Bye for now.